Economic update. I'm Richard Wolff from Democracy at Work. I want to respond to a spate of articles about the Business Roundtable, about modern American capitalism, about various business groups like the Roundtable that have decided that capitalism needs to become more self-conscious, have more of a social consciousness, be more open to its stakeholders, to be more democratic, all these kinds of statements that have been made usually by people closely associated with the business community or friendly, let's call them, friendly critics of some of the excesses of capitalist business. Part of me wants to say, good for you to recognize that capitalism hasn't had much of a social consciousness, has been busily dividing the United States and other countries into a very badly split poor versus rich kind of scenario, and that democracy has been a low priority. I'm being polite here. Part of me says that's a good sign. The other part of me, to be honest, is disgusted by all of this because it's so phony. And I mean phony in a very particular way. If you're going to take seriously what democracy means, which I'm assuming many people, good people on all sides of this issue, want to take democracy seriously. If you do, then you have to go to the root meaning of the term. And if you do that, as I'm about to do with you, then you see that making capitalism democratic is a little bit like making the square round. It doesn't work. It's either a square or it's round. But you're not going to make the round squarish, and you're not going to make the square roundish because that's not available. And that's the problem with capitalism and democracy. Let me explain. The basic idea of democracy was and is that if you are affected by a decision, then you have the right, the human right, to participate in making that decision. Mostly, democracy also carries at least the implication that we are to be equal in participating in those decisions that affect our lives. Look, that's the basic idea behind having elections. We elect the mayor, the governor, the president of a country or a region because that person in position of power makes decisions that affect us. And because that person has the power to make those decisions that affect us, we must participate in that process by electing or rejecting such persons. That gives us power over them that is, at least in theory, commensurate with their power over us. We participate in the decisions that affect our lives. Okay? If that's what democracy means, then let's take a look at the institution of the capitalist enterprise. The factory, the office, the store, whatever it is. How does it work? And this is not a question of saying we are all stakeholders. That's very nice. Of course we are. That's just another way of saying we are all affected by the decisions. And if we're affected by the decisions, and we believe in democracy, then we should have real power over those decisions. There shouldn't be people making decisions that affect us over whom we have no real ongoing institutionalized power. And yet that's exactly what a capitalist enterprise is. If it's a small enterprise, it has an individual employer / capitalist slash business owner, whatever you want to call them. If it's a corporate form of capitalism, well, then it's a board of directors, usually a group of 10 to 20 people who make all the decisions. And let's go over how an enterprise works. Whoever the capitalist is, individual entrepreneur, business owner, board of directors, it really doesn't matter for the purposes of democracy. That group, capitalist, employer, board of directors, they have enormous power over our lives. Let's start with the basic one. They hire and fire us. They thereby control how we spend our days 5 out of 7 every week. They determine whether we have an income from the work we do. They determine what work we do, how we do that work, with what equipment, on what raw materials, in what kind of a space, with what kind of music or absence of music. You get the picture? The decisions the employer has to make over our lives are total and are every day, all the time. And when you add that they determine whether we have income and how much income we have, they literally determine our lives. Not just the 5 out of 7 days, all 7 of them. And what exactly is the democratic power we have over them? Well, it's next to nothing. They hire and fire us. We don't hire and fire them. The workers in a corporation do not elect the board of directors in 99% of the cases. That's not the way capitalism works. Shareholders, who may not be any of the workers, they have that power. Only if the workers are themselves the shareholders would they have any power at all. And even then, if they have the power to elect the board of directors, that's very different from having the daily influence that a board of directors has in the decisions they make. So here's the bottom line. If you want democracy, you can't have the capitalist enterprise. It's the square that you cannot make round. If you want democracy, you have to set aside the capitalist enterprise, the enterprise owned and operated by an individual or a family or a board of directors with shareholders. What you have to have is something else. You can call it a worker co-op. You can call it a community enterprise. There's a variety of things to call it, but the basic idea is simple. It's making enterprises, and therefore an economy, democratic. That is, the people who do the work in the factory, in the office, in the store, are the ones who make the decision. That's right. One person, one vote, collectively, by majority rule, decide what the enterprise produces, what technology is used, where the production of the good or service takes place, and here comes the big one, what to do with the revenues earned from producing whatever it is the enterprise makes. If that is to be done democratically, then a cooperative, a worker co-op, is the way to go. And that's not capitalism. It's not the rule of the capitalist. It's the rule of the vast majority. It's not the rule of the employer. It's the rule of the employees. That's the crucial difference. Workers together can be their own employers. That's what a worker co-op was and is. If you're serious about democratizing the economy, then capitalism is what has to go. We'll reach that point in the history of capitalism where understanding that is on the people's agenda, both in the United States and around the world.